What's up, guys? It's Ben with 2020 election predictions, and today I wanted to look at the polls because there's been a lot of polls that have come out in the last few weeks, and even this week there's been a lot of polls that have come out, and so I definitely want to look at these and kind of just go poll by poll to analyze them. So we see that in early July in the top battleground polls, and these are a lot more important than the kind of the national polls, the popular vote polls, because as I've said in previous videos, the popular vote does not matter. And I mean, Hillary Clinton was up in some of those popular vote polls by 12 or 13 points, but at the end of the day, they didn't matter. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, but she is not president. So we can see that kind of in April was when Trump was doing his best. Biden was only up by 1.7% in the polls, in the average of the battleground state polls. And it was really seen as a toss-up. It was kind of seen as a 50-50 whether Trump or Biden was going to win. We can see that as of late, Biden has been extending his advantage. I think the highest he was is in the battleground polls when he was up by 6.2%. And we can even see as recently as July 27th, which was only about 3 weeks ago, that Biden was up by 6.2. Now we can see Trump has improved a little bit. Right now, we're at 1.1 percent, or no, 4.1 or 4.2. And before I get too far in this video, I want to remind y'all please to subscribe and watch a lot of my videos because I just monetize them. So I really hope that y'all enjoy my videos. Anyway, where we've seen the race come closer is in states like North Carolina. North Carolina's Biden's only up by 1 point with the average of the polls. If we look at the recent poll from Emerson, we see that Trump is up by 2. Trump won North Carolina by 3.5 points, which is a pretty solid margin of victory. And then we also see in a state like Arizona, this is tightened up. It's within 2.2 points at this point. Where Biden has his biggest leads are in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, which is kind of the Rust Belt. And this is actually very, very similar to 2016. So the only place where I see where Trump is really underperforming his 2016 performance is in Arizona, but that makes sense because the demographics of Arizona have changed a lot. And right now, even with Biden up by 2.2 points, I think Biden has a pretty good shot of winning it, because in 2018 the polls were actually more biased in favor of the Republicans, which is interesting. So at the end of the day, the polls had Martha McSally winning, but she actually lost. And as the vote totals came in, I think Martha McSally called Kristen Sinema on the election night. But as the votes were getting tallied longer and longer into the night, we saw that Kristen Sinema actually won by about 3 points, which means the polls were off by about like 3.5 points, which is pretty interesting. The place where I think that should be most worrying for the Trump campaign is in Florida. Trump has tightened this up. It was at 6.5 points. Now it's at 4 points. So definitely Trump is trending in the right direction in Florida. But Florida was a state that was key to Trump's victory in 2016. He won it by 1.1 points. But he was never down as far as like in the average of the polls, at least by like 6 or 4 points. I think at this point in 2016, he was down in Florida by about 1 to 2 points. And in 2018, the polls were very wrong in Florida. They were off by about 3 to 4 points. So if we account for that error, we can see that it's a very, very close race. However, Trump still needs to do better. So just looking at some of the recent polls that have come out, we see that one's coming out of Arizona. And one thing that I think is pretty interesting is looking at the difference between the Senate race and the presidential race. And this has been pretty consistent. So Mark Kelly has been outperforming Biden in this poll by 7 points. If this pattern continues itself on election day, that will be a very significant trend, because in 2016, we saw that Senate races and the presidential races matched up. Like every Senate race that a Republican won, Trump won, and the opposite was true with Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. I think this trend could very well repeat itself in 2020. And in a state like Arizona, this would hurt Trump a lot because I really don't see how Martha McSally can win in the state of Arizona just because consistently she's been down double digits. It is true that one other poll had it closer. I'm trying to see. Shoot. All right. Well, I can't find it right now, but there have been polls in the past that have had this race within single digits. But I mean, it's really hard to overcome a double-digit deficit, and I really don't find it likely that in the state of Arizona that like Trump would win and Mark Kelly would win. It is possible. However, I think if Mark Kelly wins by over 5 points, then I think that Joe Biden's also going to win this state. And that is the same to be said in the state of Maine. So we see that the state of Maine at large, Biden's up by 8 points, but we see Sarah Gideon is up by 5 points. And this is really interesting because Susan Collins, like over the years, has been kind of a moderate, and she's won these races by double digits. So we'll see if kind of the moderate Democrats, if they're willing to vote for Susan Collins, even though she voted yes on Brett Kavanaugh. A lot of people think that was the breaking point. So we will definitely see there. But this is definitely good news for Trump in North Carolina, this Trump +2, because we've seen in poll after poll, I think the 538 average even has it worse for Trump right now. Remember, we saw in the average before that he was only down by 1 point, so 1.6. So this has in the past been as big as like 3 points. So definitely Trump is moving in the right direction. We see 3.2. So that is definitely good news for Trump there in the state of North Carolina. What is very interesting is in the state of North Carolina, the Senate race, we see that Tillis is underperforming Trump. I think the race will be very, very close, but out of all the states, I think North Carolina is most likely to split where Trump would win and Cal Cunningham would win. We will see what happens. I think it's very likely that Roy Cooper would win, but people really do treat national races different from the state elections. So I expect that the Senate and presidential race will be a lot closer to each other than like the governor's race and one of the others' races. So I think that's pretty interesting. Pennsylvania +9. That's pretty common. We've seen them out of here. One thing that's pretty important to note is like when it's like a different pollster. So if I think it's wise to like compare the polls of like the same pollster, because if you start including a lot of other pollsters, they have different methodologies, and like 538 will weight them, but it's pretty interesting. Okay, so if we look at Minnesota, I thought this was a pretty interesting poll. So Biden was only up by 3 points, and if we look at the real quick politics average, this is a lot closer than like what it has here. So it has the race has plus 5.5 to Biden, but it's actually interesting that Minnesota is closer than some of the states that Donald Trump won in 2020, or won in 2016. So this definitely could be a good sign for Donald Trump. And one thing that I wanted to look at too is also the Senate race, which I've classified as a likely Democratic race, is within 3 points. So I think it might change the characterization to a lean Democratic state just for the sake of this. And also, if we see that the Arizona Senate race was within 5 points here, so definitely closer. But I still think it's going to be very, very hard for Martha McSally to win. We see in Georgia, Biden +2. I still think Trump will edge this out, but it's going to be a lot closer than it was in 2016. It's interesting with the 2nd district. I do expect Trump to win Maine's 2nd district, but he just narrowly won it in 2016. So this poll got a lot of media coverage. The headline was Biden up by 13 points. It's very misleading because the popular vote doesn't matter. Only the battleground states is what should matter. I thought this poll was really interesting. It was done by the University of Wisconsin, they did the 3 states. In the past, I've said that Michigan is the most Democratic state out of kind of the 3 states that Donald Trump won in the Rust Belt. However, it has Trump doing the best in Michigan compared to Wisconsin or Pennsylvania. I really, I really expect like Pennsylvania or Wisconsin to be the most favorable to Donald Trump. And we've seen in polls that I think Pennsylvania right now has been polling the most favorable to Donald Trump. Let's see, it has him down 6.4 here. Let's look at Wisconsin. But I mean, based on that poll, it's about the same. But if we look at Michigan, it's very, very different. I think Michigan's going to be like 7.8. So that is a pretty significant difference. This poll could definitely be an outlier, but we will definitely see. So in the state of Arizona, you can see we get dueling polls, one with Trump up, one with Biden up, but these are definitely within the margin of error. Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. This is a very, very this reminds me a lot of the 2016 race because the polls consistently had Biden up in the Rust Belt by, or no, they had Hillary Clinton up by like 6, 7, 8, 9 points. So I don't think that the Trump campaign should be too alarmed by this. I'm sure they have their own data with their internal polling. So if they release any of that, I would be very interested with that. Texas, we see Trump +6. There have been some polls that have Biden up barely in Texas. I really think that Texas is going to be a state that Donald Trump can keep. And I think either campaign is going to waste money if they dump a lot of money into the state of Texas. Michigan +11. I think this is pretty interesting. The Senate race in Michigan, it's one of the states where there's a Democratic incumbent, but John James is a pretty strong candidate for the Republicans. I don't think he'll be able to win, but I do think that John James is for sure a rising superstar within the Republican Party. I don't even know why they are bothering with polling Utah. There's not going to be a third-party candidate, a strong conservative third-party candidate in 2020, like Evan McMullen was. But I mean, Trump still won Utah by a huge margin, even though there was a third-party challenger. Kentucky, South Carolina. They're only polling these states just because of the close Senate races here. But really, I mean, Trump won Kentucky and South Carolina by a lot larger margins in these polls. So Trump could potentially be kind of losing some support in kind of his these base southern states. So I really don't think that McGrath has a chance. I think that Mitch McConnell will do pretty well. The Senate race in South Carolina, I actually think it's going to be a lot closer than I had thought in the beginning. I think this is a lean Republican state. I'm going to change it from likely to lean in my latest video. So the rest of these polls are going to be a little bit outdated just because they're over a week old. And in politics, everything changes so much. We do see Trump's support stabilizing in a state like Iowa. And we even see that like the Hill did a poll. Biden was only up 3 points in the popular vote in this one poll, which shows that I think it's a lot closer than anticipated. We also see in Montana that Steve Daines seems to be polling ahead of Steve Bullock. So I really hope you like this video. Let me know if you want me to do more kind of poll-focused videos. I typically like to look at a lot of other factors, not just the polls, because the polls can be wrong like they were wrong in 2016. So please subscribe here if you haven't already, and I'll see you later.